In this 1-hour English vocabulary lesson, you're going to learn a lot of advanced vocabulary to help you sound fluent. Let's get started. First, you're going to learn the most common phrasal verbs with pull, and at the end, you're going to complete a quiz. To pull off a task. When you pull off a task, it means that you successfully completed a difficult task. For example, let's say that your boss asks your team to double their sales by the end of the month. That's a difficult task. So you might say, I don't know how we'll pull this off. How we'll complete this difficult task. I don't know how we'll pull this off. But let's say you do double your sales. After, you can say, I can't believe we pulled it off. I can't believe we did it. We completed this difficult task. And often, to reassure someone when they're completing a difficult task, you can say, don't worry, I know you'll pull it off. You'll pull it off. You'll complete this difficult task. To pull up a document, this is a must-know phrasal verb because when you pull up a document, you make that document visible on your device. It could be a computer, laptop, phone, tablet, it doesn't matter, but it has to be a device. So if you're in a meeting, you might say, give me a second to pull up that report. Give me a second to make that report visible on the screen. Now, you can also use this with social situations. You might be having coffee with a friend and then you pull up some vacation photos. You make those photos visible on your screen and you share them with your friend. And it's very common to hear this when you're calling any sort of customer support or client support. Let's say you're making a dentist appointment. They're going to first say, can I have your name, please? And then they'll say, give me a second to pull up your file. Because on your file, it's all the important information. But they need to make that file visible on their screen. Pull up. Now, we also use pull up with vehicles. So if you're driving and you want to pull up to a store, it means you're going to slowly approach that store. Now, you may or may not stop. You may just slowly approach that store, read their hours of operation, and then keep driving. Or you may pull up to that store, slowly approach the store, and stop your car. Here's an example of me pulling up to my mailbox. So notice how I slowly approach my mailbox. I'm seeing if there's any mail, but notice I don't stop. I keep going. Don't confuse this with pull over because you can also pull your vehicle over. Now, when you pull over, it means you're driving and you bring your vehicle to the side of the road and you stop. So you always stop when you pull over. So if you're in a taxi or an Uber, you might say, oh, you can pull over by the green house. You can take the car to the side of the road and stop by the green house. Now, we also use this with the police because if you're driving and you hear a siren behind you, well, you have to pull over. You have to bring your car to the side of the road and come to a complete stop. So here you can see me pulling over next to the mailbox. I'm coming to a complete stop. Now you can also pull in and out of a parking spot or a garage or some enclosed space for your vehicle. So when you enter the parking spot or garage, you're pulling in. I'm pulling into my garage. And when you exit, you're pulling out. You're pulling out of the parking spot or pulling out of the garage. So you might say, make sure you look both ways before you pull out. Or this is a tight space, make sure you pull in slowly or carefully. So here you can see I'm pulling into my driveway, which is a confined space. And now you can see I'm pulling out of my driveway. We also use pull in and out for a chair. So when you bring the chair closer to the table, you're pulling the chair in. When you bring your chair farther away from the table, you're pulling your chair out. So if you're in a busy restaurant and you're trying to pass by someone, you might say, oh, excuse me, can you pull in your chair so I can pass by? Can you bring your chair closer to the table so there's more room for me to pass by? Or if you're too close to the table, then you need to pull your chair out. And traditionally, men will pull out the chair for a woman to have a seat. Maybe that's a little old-fashioned these days. Now you can also pull out of an event, and that means you withdraw from that event. So you no longer participate. And that event can be a race, a competition, or even an election. So let's say there's a competition for a position at your company, and there are 5 people competing for this one position. Now maybe Sarah decides to pull out. She pulls out of the competition, which means she's no longer trying to get that position. She withdraws from the competition. Or maybe you're competing in a marathon, but you hurt your leg the week before, so you have to pull out of the race. You can also pull something apart, which means something is a whole, and then you separate it into individual pieces, which is to pull apart. So something simple like an orange or a grapefruit that has individual pieces, you can pull it apart. You can also pull apart electronics or more complicated things as well. To pull oneself together, this is a great one. This means to regain your composure after you're upset, worried, anxious, or in an extreme emotional state. And to regain your composure just simply means to calm down. So if you're really agitated, maybe you got pulled over by the police and your heart is beating so fast and you're really anxious, your friend in the passenger seat might say, pull yourself together. Pull yourself together, which is another way to say calm down, regain your composure. So go from really anxious to pull yourself together. To pull through means to survive or to successfully recover from an illness. So we use this in a health context. So let's say that Greg had a major heart attack, but thankfully he pulled through. He survived that major heart attack. Now let's say Greg has that major heart attack and then he's in the hospital, you talk to the doctor, and the first thing you're going to say is Greg going to pull through? Is he going to pull through? Is he going to survive? Is he going to recover? The doctor might say, I think he'll pull through, or maybe it's too soon to tell if he'll pull through. And finally, to pull together, this is when you work together as a team. So remember that team had to double their sales by the end of the month? Well, they pulled together to pull it off, to complete that difficult challenge. And after, the boss might say, I'm really impressed by how your team pulled together. It's amazing that everyone pulled together to pull it off. Now you know the most common phrasal verbs with pull. Are you ready for your quiz? Here are your questions. So now hit pause and take as much time as you need to complete the quiz. And when you're ready, hit play to see the answers. How did you do with that quiz? Well, let's find out. Here are the answers. Hit pause, take as much time as you need to review the answers. All right, so how did you do with that quiz? Make sure you share your score in the comments below, and I also want you to leave an example sentence with your favorite phrasal verb with pull. Now let's talk about the most common phrasal verbs with take, and you'll complete a quiz at the end as well. To take off. This is used when a flight leaves the ground. For example, tomorrow my flight takes off at 7 a.m. Or what time did your flight take off? So this is another way of simply saying, what time did your flight leave? Now we also use this phrasal verb to talk about a person leaving a location. So you might be at a party and it's getting late, you have an early meeting, and you say, thanks for the party, I'm going to take off. I'm going to leave. Or someone might ask you, what time did you take off last night? What time did you leave? Now, take off is also used to remove an item of clothing. So at night, before you get into your pajamas, you take off your clothes, right? Before you get into the shower, you take off your clothes. I can also take off my makeup, which means to remove. Or if it's really hot in the room, you might say, oh, it's so hot in here, I need to take off my sweater. Or when you come into the house and it's cold out, you take off your jacket, you take off your shoes, you take off your hat, you take off your gloves, take off your sunglasses. So you can take off an item of clothing, but you can also take off accessories like rings, makeup, glasses as well. Take off can also mean to become successful. For example, after I improved my English speaking skills, my career really took off. My career became successful. My career took off. Or I could say overnight, my YouTube channel took off. My YouTube channel became successful. So many different phrasal verbs with take off, but they're all commonly used. So make sure you learn all these individual meanings. To take after someone. When you take after someone, you resemble them in either personality or appearance, and this is most commonly used with family members. For example, it's very common for a son to take after his dad, which means he looks like him. They look very similar. But you might also say, Julie is so funny. She really takes after Uncle Frank. So maybe Uncle Frank is really funny. He's always telling these hilarious jokes. And then Julie is also really funny. She takes after Uncle Frank. So you can use this with personality or appearance. To take apart. When you take something apart, you disassemble it. So it goes from being whole, one complete item, and then you disassemble it into individual parts. So if your car isn't working, you might take apart the motor or take apart the engine to try to figure out what the problem is. You might also take apart a desk or take apart a bed when you're getting rid of it, when you're removing it from your home, because it's easier to move when it's in individual parts rather than one big structure. To take back. When you take something back, it means that you return a purchased item to the store for a refund. So let's say you bought a pair of shoes at the store, you come home and you realize they don't fit very well or you just don't really like them. Well, you can take them back. So you go to the store, you return the shoes, and you get your money back. Now, we only use this when you physically go to the store. So with online purchases, we actually don't use the phrasal verb take back. So if you order something from Amazon and you don't like it and you want a refund, we simply say, I returned the shoes I bought from Amazon, or I sent back. I sent back the shoes. So just keep that in mind. We only use take back when you physically go to the store. You can also take someone back, which means you reunite a previous romantic relationship. So let's say that Rob and Julie were a couple last year, but then they broke up. They ended their relationship. But then Rob, he begs Julie, please take me back. Please accept me again as your romantic partner. Please take me back. But Julie's friend might say, don't take Rob back. Why would you take Rob back? You shouldn't take Rob back. To take on. When you take on a project or a task, it simply means that you accept that project or task. For example, your boss might ask the team, who has time to take this on? Who has time to take on this new project or this new client? And you might say, I can take it on. I can take it on. So you accept that responsibility for that job. You can also take over a responsibility, a project, a task, which means that you assume responsibility from another person. So let's say Julie took on the project, but then Julie decided to go on a 3-week vacation. So your boss might ask you to take over. So the responsibility goes from Julie to you. Hey Maria, can you take over this project while Julie's on vacation? Or it can be, can you just take over this project? So it can be permanent, it becomes your project permanently, or it can just be a temporary situation while someone is sick or on vacation. To take someone out. When you take someone out, it means you invite them for an activity such as having a meal together or going to the movies together, but you pay for that activity. For example, let's say it's your birthday. Well, your husband, your best friend, your mother, your sister might take you out for dinner, which means they invite you for dinner and they also pay for dinner. That's the important part. Or they might take you out for a nice night at the movies and you go to the movies together, or maybe to the amusement park. So you can do other activities, but it's mainly used with meals. So maybe your friend says, why would you take Rob back? Why would you take Rob back? He didn't even take you out for your birthday. Oh, he didn't invite you out for dinner and then pay for that meal. You can take up a new hobby or activity, which means you start that new hobby or activity. So you could tell your friends, I decided to take up karate, which means you decided to start karate lessons as a new hobby or activity. Or your friend might say, I didn't know you took up dancing. I didn't know you started dancing as a hobby or activity. So now you know the most common phrasal verbs with take. Are you ready for your quiz? Here are the questions. So go ahead and hit pause, complete the quiz, take as much time as you need, and when you're ready, hit play to see the answers. How'd you do on that quiz? Well, let's find out. Here are the answers. So hit pause and review these answers to see how well you did. So, how'd you do on the quiz? Make sure you share your score in the comments below, and I want you to leave an example sentence practicing your favorite take phrasal verb. Now you're going to learn 15 advanced words. These are C1 words to help you sound smarter, more advanced, more fluent in English. So let's go. Here's number 1, a fiasco. This is a noun, and it means a complete failure or collapse. Now, you describe something as a fiasco. For example, you could say, the conference was a complete fiasco. So, a complete failure. It means the exact same thing, but side by side, failure is more of a beginner word. It's an everyday word. Fiasco instantly makes you sound smarter. Number 2, to revel in something. This is a phrasal verb, so pay attention to the sentence structure because you need the preposition in. To revel in something. This has an easy meaning. It simply means to really enjoy something and take pleasure in something. For example, he reveled in his new promotion. He really enjoyed his new promotion, took a lot of pleasure from it. Now, just an important note. Don't confuse the pronunciation with the very common word reveal. We're talking about revel, revel, reveal, revel. Notice the difference in the vowel sound. This is a short sound, revel. Long sound, reveal. He reveled in his promotion. Number 3, to anticipate. This is a verb, and it's used when something is likely or probable. So I could say, we're not anticipating any problems tonight. So it's simply saying we're not expecting. Problems are not likely or probable. Now remember, this is a verb, so notice the verb tense. We're not anticipating any problems tonight. This is in the present continuous. It's simply negative, but in the present continuous. Number 4, to exaggerate. This is when you make something seem larger, more important, better, or even worse than it actually is. A lot of people do this with their problems. They might have a problem that's like this, but then they exaggerate it and they make the problem sound like it's this. They exaggerate. Another example, I could say, that was the best meal I've ever had. I'm not exaggerating. So notice, I'm using this in the negative to say I'm not making it better than it actually is. It is that good in reality. Now we can use this with any adjective. That was the worst meal, the most expensive meal, the most unique meal, the spiciest meal. I'm not exaggerating. Number 5, to indicate. This is a verb, and this is when you make something clear or you simply show something. We use this a lot in research studies and reports. For example, the study indicated that the cost of gold is increasing. So this is just a smarter way to say the study showed that the cost of gold is increasing. Number 6, inevitable. That's a fun word to say. Inevitable. Inevitable. This is an adjective, and it's when something is certain to happen. So 99.9% going to happen. Now, we generally use this with negative outcomes. If you keep eating fast food, a heart attack is inevitable. Number 7, to intend. This is a verb. and it's used when you have a plan or a purpose. We commonly use this in the negative to say we don't have a plan or purpose. For example, I could say, I didn't intend to hurt your feelings. That wasn't my plan. That wasn't my purpose. I didn't intend to hurt your feelings. Now, you can definitely use this in the positive. For example, we're talking about C1 vocabulary. This video is intended for advanced students. Number 8, mistaken. This is an adjective, and it's when you're simply wrong. You're wrong in opinion or judgment. So I could say, I thought the conference started at 9, but I was wrong. You can say that. Or why not sound smarter and say, I thought the conference started at 9, but I was mistaken. So just that one small change will instantly make you sound smarter. Number 9, noticeable. This is an adjective. It's when something is easy to see or recognize. For example, I could say there's an improvement in your speaking skills. Now, improvement is our noun, so I can modify our noun with our adjective noticeable and say there's a noticeable improvement in your speaking skills. It makes your sentence more complex, and it makes the improvement sound better because it's easy to see or recognize. Number 10, substantial. This is an adjective. This means large in size, value, or worth. For example, her promotion was substantial. It was large in value or in worth. Cha-ching! Number 11, to absorb. You need this one because when you absorb information, it means you understand it fully. So when you start a new job, you might say there's so much information to absorb. So you have to get the information, but then you also have to understand it fully. So hopefully you're absorbing all of these new words. Number 12, to compel. This is a verb. It means to force someone to do something. For example, he was compelled to wear a suit to work. This means he didn't want to wear a suit. Somebody, most likely his boss or the company as a whole, forced him. They compelled him to wear a suit. Number 13, drastically. This is an adverb. It modifies a verb. And when something happens drastically, it's in a severe and sudden way. For example, everyone's daily routine was drastically changed in 2020. We went from going out every day to staying home every day. Our routines changed drastically. Number 14, excessive. This is an adjective, and it means too much. The amount of sugar in processed foods is excessive. It's too much. And finally, to generalize. This is a verb, and it is used when you say that something is true all the time, when in reality, it isn't. It's only true some of the time, perhaps. For example, many people say that Canada is cold all the time. You can't generalize about the climate in Canada. We have a very diverse climate. It can get really hot and it can also get really cold. So now you have lots of English vocabulary to sound smarter. Let me know in the comments, which one was your favorite? My favorite was definitely number 1, fiasco. I think just because it's really fun to say, fiasco. It sounds a little Italian. I have no idea if it is. Fiasco. I like it. What about you? Share your pick and practice it in the comments below. Now you're going to learn all of the job interview vocabulary that you need to impress your interviewer and get your dream job. Let's get started with the first question that you're going to be asked. Tell me about yourself. When you're asked this question, you absolutely must use the expression, I have more than, over, or almost 10 years of experience, and then you can add as a and your job title. As a project manager, as an accountant. Don't forget that article. It's very important that it's there before your job title. Now, you can also talk about your experience in a particular field. I have almost 20 years of experience in the project management industry. I have more than 15 years of experience in the IT sector. So you can use field, industry, or sector. Now notice you have more than or over. That's when the number is greater than. And then you have almost. That's when the number is less than. So if you actually have 13 or 14 years of experience, well, it sounds better to use a round number like 15. So you can say almost 15 years of experience if you have 13 or 14. Now, you can add to this and tell us more about your responsibilities in that role. So you can say, in this role, which is your role as a financial analyst, in this role, you could also say in that role, it doesn't matter, in that role, I was responsible for. Or you can say, I am responsible for, was if you're viewing the role as complete, and I am responsible for if you're currently doing that role. I was responsible for. Now, after this, we need a gerund verb. So you can use many different verbs to talk about your experience. These are the most common verbs you can use. In this role, I was responsible for managing, overseeing, leading, coordinating, creating, developing, reviewing, improving, streamlining, and analyzing. Of course, you can use other verbs, but these are the most common. Now, streamlining, this means improving the efficiency or effectiveness. So as a financial analyst, you could say, I have over 20 years of experience as a financial analyst in the IT industry. In this role, I'm responsible for overseeing a team of 15 people, and I'm responsible for streamlining our operations. Now, in a job interview, you absolutely want to use more academic or formal adjectives. You don't want to say, I have a lot of experience. That doesn't sound very strong or convincing. It sounds a lot more impressive if you say, I have extensive experience. I have significant experience. So those are two must-know adjectives that you should use in job interviews. Extensive and significant, which simply is a more formal way of saying a lot of. I have significant experience. And again, after this, you need a gerund verb. You can use any of the verbs I've already shared, and of course, you'll have specific verbs for your industry and your specific job title. I have extensive experience creating international marketing campaigns for a variety of industries. Now, after this expression, I have significant, extensive experience, you could also use a noun. I have significant project management experience. I have significant financial analysis experience. So you don't have to use a gerund verb, you could also use a noun. If you're asked about your education or your credentials, you can simply say, I have a Bachelor of. I have a Bachelor of Science, a Bachelor of Arts, a Bachelor of Engineering, whatever that may be. Now, you can end it there, but you may also choose to identify the school and the year you graduated. Those aren't requirements, but if you went to a prestigious or well-known school, or you recently graduated, those might be useful details to include. I have a Bachelor of Science from Cornell. I graduated in 2020. You could also use the verbs received or obtained, which are more formal than have. However, it's extremely common to use the verb have. I have a bachelor, I have a master, but you can absolutely use received or obtained to use the more formal version. I received my Master of Education from Cornell in 2020. I obtained my Master of Engineering from MIT in 2019. If your credential is a certification, you can use the verbs I received, I completed, or I obtained. I completed my PMP in 2019. Now notice here I use an acronym, PMP. If I'm applying for a job in the project management industry, they know what a PMP is. It's the most prestigious certification in the industry. It stands for Project Management Professional. So there's no need to identify an acronym if that acronym is well known in your specific industry. Let's talk about your personal strengths. The interviewer is likely going to ask you, what are your strengths? What would you say are your 3 best qualities? So here you can use a transition word. As for my strengths, that's just to introduce the point. As for my strengths, I'm extremely, and then you can list the quality. Now notice here I use the adjective extremely. This is a more convincing adjective than I'm really or very. You want to avoid those common adjectives because they don't stand out, and it's way more convincing to use a stronger adjective in a job interview like extremely. I'm extremely hardworking, which sounds stronger than I'm really hardworking. Let's review some common adjectives that you're going to use, and for all of these adjectives, you're going to use the verb to be and then list the adjective. I'm extremely hardworking, committed, trustworthy, honest, focused, methodical, proactive, a team player. For a team player, you can't use an adjective. You're simply going to say, I'm a team player. You're not going to say, I'm extremely team player. That doesn't work. I'm a team player. Now let's talk about some specific skills you should highlight in your interview. Now the following skills are rated as the top 10 skills that employers want. Of course, the skills are specific to your industry, but you can take this as a general list of skills that would be useful to highlight during the interview. And to talk about these skills, you can say, I have. And for an adjective, you can say, I have advanced, I have superior, I have excellent, and then you list the skill. I have excellent time management skills. I have superior communication skills. I have advanced adaptability skills. The other top 10 skills are problem solving, teamwork, creativity, leadership, interpersonal skills, attention to detail, and work ethic. For work ethic, we have a very specific adjective, and that's strong. I have a strong work ethic. So this is the specific expression for work ethic. I have a strong work ethic. So let's say you want to show off your communication skills. I have superior communication skills. Now let's say the interviewer wants to know why you're interested in this specific position. You could say, I'm looking for an opportunity to further or to develop my X skills. So your project management skills, your teamwork skills, your financial analysis skills, whatever the specific skill is. You could also say, I'm looking for an opportunity to gain experience in, and then you can talk about a specific field, industry, or sector. In the IT industry, in the project management field, in the marketing sector. You should absolutely have a conclusion. Don't just say, thank you for your time. You should leave them with a really strong impression of your skills and your ability to complete the job and be an asset to the organization. So you can say, I believe that, I know that, I'm confident that my extensive project management skills would make me a valuable asset to your company, your team, your organization. And I look forward to the opportunity to contribute to your goals. Of course, you should take this and adapt it to your specific industry or role, but you absolutely want a strong conclusion statement to impress the interviewer. So now you have 50 plus advanced English expressions that you can use to impress your interviewer. I want you to practice in the comments below by answering the question, tell me about yourself, and try to use as many different expressions from this lesson as you can. I can't wait to learn a little bit more about your professional background. Now you're going to learn over 50 transition words that will help you sound very advanced and professional in English. So what exactly are transition words? Well, transition words are individual words or groups of words, phrases, that you can use to organize your ideas and to show connection between your ideas. They're commonly used in academic or formal writing, but you shouldn't limit their use to just that because you can absolutely use them in your spoken English, and you should use them in your spoken English to sound very advanced and professional. And if you watch to the end of this video, I'm going to share how you can use transition words to expand your ideas and to take a really simple idea and be able to talk on that idea for longer using transition words. So stay right to the end. So let's get started. You're going to learn over 50 transition words in this lesson. Don't feel overwhelmed. Just add them to your vocabulary as you go. Our first group of transition words are used to show cause and effect, causation. So here I have two separate ideas. I spilled my coffee, I changed my shirt. Now this is where we can use a transition word to combine these ideas together and to show the relationship between them. I spilled my coffee, as a result, I changed my shirt. Cause and effect. Here are the transition words in this category, and they're listed from most formal to least formal. So you can take a screenshot of this. Consequently, hence, accordingly, thus, for that reason, as a result, therefore, and so, since, because, due to. Now the example I gave you, I spilled my coffee, as a result, I changed my shirt. This is a casual statement. It might sound a little odd, perhaps out of place, to use a very formal transition word such as consequently in such a common everyday speech. I spilled my coffee, consequently, I changed my shirt. You could absolutely say it, it's grammatically correct, but the choice of transition word is just a little too formal. So do not think that formal is the best, and you absolutely should use formal. You should use formal when your ideas are more formal. They're more academic, they're more professional in a business context. Let's look at a business context. The project is over budget. We have to cut costs. So again, we'll show our cause and effect. We'll use a transition word to combine these ideas. And because it's a more formal context, I can use a more formal transition word. The project is over budget, hence, consequently, thus, we have to cut costs. Our next group of transition words is chronology. This is how events are related based on when they occur. So think of time. Here are 3 events. I went to the store, I worked out, I made dinner. Now, of course, we can add first, second, third, first, next, finally. That's chronology. And it instantly sounds more organized and more advanced when you add the transition words. So let's review the transition words in this category. First, firstly, to start, to begin, at the beginning, at the start. Second, secondly, after, afterwards, next, then, subsequently, later. Third, thirdly, after, afterwards, next, then, subsequently, later, finally, lastly, last but not least. Now notice that for the second and third events, many of the transition words are the same. You can use after, after for the second and third event. Or you can use next, next for the second and third and fourth and fifth event. But you might want to avoid that so you don't sound repetitive using the same transition word again and again. So you can use next, then, subsequently, finally. So you can use the different transition words just to show off your advanced vocabulary. Our next category of transition words is to show contrast when you have 2 opposing ideas. Let me give you 2 ideas. I love ice cream. I'm lactose intolerant. So can you see how these 2 ideas are in opposition? I love ice cream is great. It's a really positive thing. But I'm lactose intolerant. That's negative, and it also means that I can't eat ice cream. So those ideas are in opposition. So we can use our contrasting transition words. However, although, though, but. I love ice cream, but I'm lactose intolerant. Same thing, the transition words are listed from most formal to least formal. Again, you could say, I love ice cream, however, I'm lactose intolerant. But again, these ideas are quite simple, so you probably want a more simple transition word. Our next category of transition words is addition of similar ideas. I love ice cream, I love cake. It's adding a similar idea because they're both in the same category, which is desserts or sweets. The most common transition words from most formal to least formal in this category are furthermore, moreover, further, additionally, in addition, also, and. I love ice cream and I love cake. Obviously, you know that one. So why not try to advance your vocabulary by using in addition? I love ice cream. In addition, I love cake. Now let's talk about generality. This is when things are true most of the time. The most common transition words in this category are in general, generally, generally speaking, by and large, for the most part, most of the time, more often than not, usually, typically, mostly. So let's take an example. Our meetings are very productive. Now, of course, I'm sure there's 1 or 2 meetings that aren't very productive, but most of the time, in general, generally speaking, our meetings are very productive. Now let's look at the category of examples. There are really only 3 main transition words. For example, as an example, for instance. This software has really helped us. Now it can make your point a lot stronger or help you expand on your idea by adding an example. This software has really helped us. For example, as an example, for instance, it reduced our error rate by 40%. Our next category is emphasis. This category is used to make a point stronger by adding more supporting information. Let's take a simple example. I love pie. Now, what if I wanted to make this point stronger? I could say, it's my favorite dessert. I love pie. In fact, it's my favorite dessert. I love pie. As a matter of fact, it's my favorite dessert. These are the only two transition words that are commonly used to add emphasis. And finally, conclusion transition words. Notice I just used a transition word. And finally, that is a conclusion transition word. Now, of course, in this category, we use these transition words when we want to end what we're saying, end our speech, end our presentation. Here are the most common transition words listed from most formal to least formal. In conclusion, to conclude, to summarize, in sum, all things considered, finally, overall, ultimately, in the end, to wrap up, to sum up, all in all. So let's say I'm ending my presentation at work and I want my colleagues to remember one very important fact. And that fact is, if we want to remain competitive, we have to invest in automation. Now, to let my colleagues know that this is the last point I'm going to make, my final point, I'm going to add a conclusion transition word. Ultimately, if we want to remain competitive, we have to invest in automation. So now you have 50 plus transition words to help you communicate your ideas in a very professional and organized way. Before you go, let me share a bonus tip with you. You can use transition words to help you expand on your ideas. So let's take one idea. In general, our meetings are very productive. Now, I can pick any category of transition word to expand on this idea. I could add a contrast. However, they usually run over time. So this is an opposing idea. Now, let me give an example of my last point to add emphasis and to expand even more. For example, today our meeting was scheduled to end at 11 and it went until 11:17. So let's expand on this even more. What was the effect of the meeting running over by 17 minutes? As a result, I was late for a meeting with a client. Were there any other effects? If there were, I could use an addition of a similar idea transition word. Additionally, I had to work through lunch to catch up. As you can see, transition words are an excellent way to expand on your ideas. So now it's your turn. In the comments below, why don't you take 3 or more transition words and start with one idea and then just pick any other category and expand on that idea with 3 or more transition words. So you can do that in the comments below. Let's end this lesson with the most common phrasal verbs with pick, pick up, and pick out. So let's talk about pick. Pick as a verb means to select, and you select one or more from many options. So here, for example, we have many different options of pens. I love color, so I like writing with different colors. Now, let's say you need a pen, and you say, Jennifer, can I borrow a pen? And I could say, sure, pick one. Pick one. So I want you to take one of the many options. Pick one. Now, it doesn't have to be limited to one. So I could say, sure, pick the ones, plural, pick the ones you like. So I'm encouraging you to take more than one pen. So you might pick the green one and pick the orange one, and you're a little greedy, and you pick the blue one. Now let's compare that to pick out, because we also use pick out as a phrasal verb. Notice it has the preposition out, so this is a phrasal verb. We add the preposition out, and we can use it to say, identify one or more out of many. Now, that is exactly the same as pick, right? So I could say, sure, pick one out, and you pick the orange one. Or I could say, sure, pick out your favorites. and you pick out the yellow, blue, and the green one. And you can say, I picked these out. So in this specific context of selecting one or more from many, you can use either pick or pick out. There's no difference in meaning. Now let's talk about pick up. This is the mistake I see. Sometimes students use pick up instead of pick out, but they're completely different meanings. So pick up is in no way related to selecting, okay? Completely different. Now, pick up has many different meanings. I'm going to explain the two most common. The first is to raise something with your hands, okay? So let's say oops, drop my pen. I need, and this is the floor, okay? I need to pick it up. So I'm lifting something, raising something with my hands. So let's say you got a parcel and it's really big. You could ask someone, can you help me pick this up? It's really heavy. Now, the second most common meaning of pick up is when you go to a place to get someone or something and then take that someone or something to another place. So I'm sure you know this one because it's very commonly used. Can you pick me up from the airport? So you go to the airport, you get me, and you bring me to another location. So we use it with people, and a lot of people know this because they have to pick their kids up from school, for example, or they have to pick their husband up from work, for example. So it's very commonly used. Now, another way we use it that most students don't know about is you can also pick something up. So for example, your wife could call you and say, honey, can you pick some milk up on your way home? So you're going to go from work to the store, get milk, and bring the milk to another location. Can you pick some milk up from the store? Or can you pick up some pens on your way home? Because I don't have enough colorful pens. I want more pens. Can you pick some pens up on your way home? But just remember that pick up is in no way related to pick or pick out. So now you know how to use pick and pick out to mean select one out of many, and you know two common meanings for the phrasal verb pick up. So you have 4 sentences to write. I want you to leave those in the comments below. Now, I want you to keep improving your English with this lesson. And if you haven't already, make sure you go to my website and get this free speaking guide to help you speak English fluently and confidently. You can click the link right here. So get started with your next lesson right now.